And our theme is visiting from the program committee. And I probably should have established a quorum a little earlier than we have one. James Caviston is not here tonight. So what I'd like to do is, even if we can run down the agenda quickly, welcome guests and public comment. Is there any public comment?
Yes, sir.
Review and approval of minutes, charge of committee, and we'll set that up for the next time. Review of current budget, which is what we'll be going through tonight in kind of an unusual more of a working session than anything else. You won't see any conclusions here. But we'll get to that in a second. And then we'll set the next meeting. My understanding is we're supposed to submit a budget for next year by April 1st through the board. So we'll have to figure out what the mechanics of that are. I would like to dispense or to defer the review and approval of minutes because I'd like James to be here for that. That's okay with the rest of the committee. And also the welcome to Rick Crowley, whose status is actually, I won't even get into the status. I'm just going to say that he did a lot of the work assembling all the information that you'll see in the next 45 minutes or so. And unless I'm forgetting something.
I don't mean to be an idiot, but do we have to vote to defer the reading of the minutes since it's an agenda item?
If someone wants to, or
We can do it in 4 seconds, but I'm just trying to play by ball.
we can, the chair can adjust the agenda if need be.
Fine.
And if the general consent of the group is sufficient. But
I'd like to waive, but I just didn't want to do it wrong.
Chair will entertain a motion to waive the reading of the minutes so that
I will make such a motion to waive, to defer the approval of the minutes.
Great. Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Great, thanks.
Tony, you doing minutes? Is that?
Sure.
I'll take some minutes.
This, the review that we'll do of the numbers that you'll be seeing shortly is it's a little bit of a different kind of review. The numbers that you'll see is are a work in process. You'll see draft for discussion purposes all over it. It's not to say that this isn't a pretty good estimate of what we would see the next, from here to the end of June, which is this current year, and then for July 1 through June 30, 2012. It's going to give you a pretty good idea of what the current thinking is. Some of these things will be inaccurate. Some are estimates. Some are estimates based on good information or information that we've gone through over the last 6 months in actual operations. Some are flat out guesses. But they come within a reasonable boundary of what you would expect to see. This is a public document. Everyone can see it. There'll be a PDF of it that's made available. I think right now what you're looking at are summary pages. But all of this will be, I'll make sure you get one, Jason. It will be a PDF, all these pages in this form. There are many unknowns. You'll likely see substantial changes. These are all the caveats because as someone who operates a business that changes and reality changes around it from time to time, you shift it as you see fit and as is required. It's a draft for discussion purposes only. It would be deeply unfair to return to this as if these are facts. Some of them are known, some of them aren't. I'd also say that there's been a lot of discussion on the program side about what we need and when we need it. All of that is useful. The difficult part is we will not be able to do everything that everyone wants. We never will. But that's a good thing. That's the right kind of attention to have. We shouldn't be running around 6 months from now wondering how to spend an extra $300 grand. That's just, we wouldn't be serving the mission appropriately if we were doing that. But we also don't want to hang any ornaments on this. There's not a lot of room, as you'll see, for much, and that's as is. Everyone knows that the world, when the world surprises you, it's typically not on the positive side. And if you have a fiduciary responsibility for an organization like this, your requirement is to be sure to all room for surprises on the positive side. So the way I'd like to do this is first to have Tony walk us through an overview, hitting on the points that he'd like to hit on. Second, to get a sense for the questions that would come from members of the Finance Committee. And then third, to see if there are other questions that other people have. And we'll see what it looks like. The questions may or may not be addressed, but certainly we'll mark them down as areas that should be addressed in the future. I think that the main takeaway for me in looking at this and working on it over the last several days is that the school from here to the end of June is one kind of operation. As we've been saying in this committee's been meeting for a while, there's no extra funding. We've effectively borrowed from vendors. They're being patient thus far, but we'll be fine getting through from here to the end of June if we maintain the same kind of discipline. Next year looks very different because we go from a head count of right now 85 to almost 2.5 times that. So the revenue number is much more, Rick is the word robust. It's much bigger and it affords a number of different possibilities too. So Tony, let me ask you whatever you want to say about it, what you think people should know. And then there may be questions for Rick, but I'd appreciate if the questions came through the chair and then we'll go from there.
Well, you did a great job introducing it. I think that that first part from now to the end of the year, the income from state payments will carry us through to the end of the year, but with no additional expenditures outside of regular operations. And then the picture changes substantially. We have 200 students from the lottery to file with the state for March 18th. The per head allotment last year was 11,700, and to be conservative in putting the budget together for the budget draft that you'll be looking at tonight, the allotment is in there for 11,000. And I spoke to the department about when, if ever, historically had the tuition or per head allotment changed substantially, and it has never gone that far down. So they felt that was a very good number to go with, very conservative. There are also no grants in this budget, so this is budget based entirely on per head allotment of the 11,000 times the 200 students. It's a real change in staffing, and 60% of the operating is personnel and benefits, and we go to 2 sections of 2-3, so 2 teachers there, 2 sections of 4-5 with 2 teachers there, 4 sections at full capacity for grades 6-7 with 80 students and 4 teachers, and 2 sections of grade 8 with 2 teachers. So an academic staff of 10, and an increase in the special ed staff, which you'll see in the budget. Spoke to a lot of schools around special ed support, and there's strong advice to have 1 special ed teacher for each combined section. So that that's in the budget. We put those numbers in.
By that you mean a 4, 5, 6, 7?
So for 4 or 5, those 2 classes, we have a full-time staff member, special ed for...
1 for every 40?
For 2, 3. Essentially, for us, it works out to 1 for every 40. Same for 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, you have 2 because the larger number, and 1 for grade 8. So that's in here as well. I think those are the most significant differences. The other is the head of school position, which many of you will have read the article in the Glass Daily Times from today. And I think actually put it very clearly in terms of Fran Quinn's article, where he just simply says that the school is looking at a very different picture, much larger school, and that we're the skills we're looking for, and skill set in this person is at a different level. And so in terms
Did
of
you talk to Fran, just out of curiosity?
No, but just your interview with him, or
From 3 weeks ago.
oh, was it 3 weeks ago?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, he did.
I just sent him the copy of the letter to the commissioner.
Oh, he did an article today.
Well, that was the headline, I think. That was the lead, was the different hiring will go on
Yeah.
based on the commissioners.
Actually, Rick, you know what, if you can click on the head count tab, or that would give a sense for that.
Yeah.
Even the admin.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So that,
But that's in the PDF. Rick, this is all in the PDF that you sent me. Yeah.
It's also in the package.
should it in this?
Oh, is it?
I hadn't gone through it.
Yeah, it should be in there.
Okay, so not just the summary.
No, the three that are in the package is the Q summary, tuition grants, and headcount details drive you crazy.
The last page.
The details, yeah. So the details in the PDF.
The details in the PDF, as is the BBA.
Okay.
Just a fiduciary question. Is that 1 to 40 a fairly typical ratio for special ed kids?
I mean, as with any budget, I think that you have to remember we're increasing the size of the school by more than double in terms of new students. And we won't see their IEPs until they come in.
Yeah,
And so, I think that,
that's to plan for.
yeah, I think that, well, and even in planning, I think that we have to look at this and recognize that once we get to know the students, we're going to have to, in the same way we did this year, we're going to have to come back to it, take another look at it, and see where we are. That's just the nature of the beast.
And there are other personnel in here that would be focused in support of.
Just trying to get it all in, but I can't. Yeah, these two below the line.
I think it's more the top one if you can.
Yeah, I can do it.
Because that even there's a SPED director who would spend, well, I guess, under this model, would spend half of her time on the administrative and
Yeah,
management
she's
side.
half administrative, and actually, we've always had it that way, right from the beginning, it was half teaching, half
And
administrative.
the dean of students physics is in support of SPED.
But all these people are in that budget front page that we saw.
Correct.
That has the total. Can I ask an absolute, just the most obvious question out, the big elephant in the room? You can go back to that first board. Why does it say there's a $136,000 profit for fiscal year 11 and a $97,000 profit, quote unquote? Does this mean these are things where you guys are going to be saying, okay, how do you all see spending the rest of that budget on items that enhance the education?
Profit is
Yeah,
a misnomer.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, that's not a cushion.
But I think that's the important part to understand.
Yeah.
We can go to the cash elements if we need to, but then Rick, you're probably better placed
Yeah,
to
the
answer
challenge,
question.
yeah, absolutely, Joe. The challenge with the way the money is received, literally is received on the last day of the month.
Exactly.
So that's the killer. So even though that shows a profit for the year,
Yeah,
we're receiving on the last day.
but that money really, but
Then it rolls.
it rolls forward,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
will that, I mean, I know it's not a profit, but that is leftover money in fiscal 11, right? As you start, it'll help your cash flow. But is that money not lost to the bottom line? Am I
It's not, the school doesn't stop at the end of June.
I understand?
And there's a number of things that cross over from the end of June into July and August and September and October.
But is that part of the
Cash.
next budget?
But part of it is a cash deficit.
Yeah,
Some of it is other expenses that we've accrued. You can see from from when people are added, which is about 60% of the budget, that we were paying out cash before we're taking in revenue. A lot. So we
still might have that piece of cash.
Right, so it's not like you do end June, you get a payment on June 30, but you will have just barely made it to June 30. We will be out of oxygen on June 29th. That's how tight the budget is.
And there are payables that remain right now that money would go to.
Would go to, okay.
In part, that's right. It would go to that, it would go to ongoing salaries, it would go to a summer program, it would go to hiring, it would go to rent, it would go to all the things that we have to do, whether it's August or November.
When does fiscal year 2012 begin? July 1st, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to shut up, because I don't understand in the time between the end of June and the beginning of July, which is the 2nd, where's the money go? I mean, did we end up that first fiscal year 11 ahead by 136 in terms of money that's now we can use as cash flow for the ensuing period of the end of the summer, but I don't know, I'm just looking at a big whopping profit at the bottom, and what does that mean? It means we didn't lose money, but we didn't make money, but
But it's not cash.
I understand.
Let me come at it another way. You actually do have, we do have cash at the end of the year.
Yep.
There's about 200,000. And simply because all that money came in we're projecting, I think, 240 to come in. So you guys, you come into that new fiscal year with the cash. What then happens though, each quarter, this quarter.
Right, you're going to run down the gasoline.
And it runs out.
Yeah, it runs out.
You do-
Okay.
And if we.
So it's a paper profit, but at least it gives you a float to get to the next check.
It doesn't though.
Okay?
It doesn't get you to the
It
next
doesn't make
check.
it all the way.
No.
Yeah.
You'll see if you go into that. Sure, yeah.
We try it.
Dive into the detail, because that will answer Gordon's question. So it looks like the end of the year, and you got $146,000 in the bank.
Right.
But it's
This-
not.
It's just the check too for the next period, plus all the crap you owe.
Now you'll see what
Here's
happens.
the line.
Yeah.
This is the cash balance line. So starting right here,
Yep.
okay, the end of March, we should have around 130,000. Then look what happens, it goes down, and it goes down again. And then during the month of June,
Right.
it's below zero, because in the last day, money comes in, so you have to manage it. Now look what happens.
The last day, in fact, if you mark the money coming in on July 1st instead of June, June would show a big negative number.
Right.
And now look what happens.
Look at
Throughout
August.
a whole year,
Yeah.
mid-month of each quarter is negative. It's negative.
Which is actually
It's
Okay.
negative.
common, and if not the norm. Most schools will have bank debt in terms of,
Cash.
that they can draw, that's right, that they can
Okay.
draw down on.
Just curious, because it looked funny to me, I just,
Yeah.
No, but that's,
finance person.
no, but that's, you're right.
I'm a bottom line guy, you know,
Right.
what can I say?
But it's also, now go back to which is an area that some of us are comfortable in an organization of this size. It's all about cash.
Go back to,
So you can, in other words, Gordy, you can see 146 at the end of June. I just want to know what the cash is. And that's what we were just looking at. We were looking at what the cash is. The good news is that a bank who has dealt with a charter school before would be able to look at these numbers and call them reasonable and see fit to do a revolving line of credit. Because essentially what we just need to do is be able to cover the cash shortfall with a line and then pay it back in the next month or two and then draw it down.
Chuck, does that, as an uninformed board member here, does that create a short-term deficit situation where you're drawing against funds, but in effect, it's drawing down the total amount, and you know that you're facing having to pay that back?
You can though. You'll see from what's called cash flow.
Okay.
But also there is a cost to the loan called
Interest.
and it's well known. We could probably use a 4 to 6% and be pretty safe about it. And the idea would be just to have enough so that if something came up, we could draw it down, but knowing that we really wouldn't need to draw down a whole lot for very much time. The other thing about this budget is there's more variability built into it than is otherwise shown here. So if something came up, if significantly less kids showed up on the first day, we could adjust if we needed to. There are things that that are slated to add early that could be added later if we needed to.
Story of our first year.
Yeah,
And we didn't have to take any cash on that loan, credit line.
Right.
So hopefully we won't in year two.
That's right.
Wait.
Well, no, with the year two, we'd we'd look for that because
We're more bankable.
number one and number two, there's not a whole lot of different ways to not pay people.
So, Joe, you said at the beginning that you wanted to focus mostly on this year, from now to the end of the school year. I had a few questions on what we just saw around salaries for next year, but maybe we want to go back to that at some other point. We can do that. Do you want to discuss that right now, or want to continue? I think Tony was part of it through.
I think it's, for if there are details in this, it's probably better just to talk to Tony about it. And obviously Tony knows to talk to Rick or whoever he needs to about what looks out along or what it looks like.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, I'll just share though, what's in the spreadsheet, I can tell you now. By teacher, anything that starts here, that's a new spot, or starts here, these are new spots. And then what we also did is recognizing these are the current teachers right here. We also did a pool of raises that's needed. So these dollars here will be spread out. That's
my first question.
Yeah, good. And I think there's enough there to cover what you're looking
There
at.
is, we went through
Yeah,
it.
just the other thing that I'm noticing here, I was thinking about this some the last few days particularly. I'd like to see from a programmatic point of view, maybe some teachers with further experience, a little more years of experience, who are going to cost more. And possibly to bring in a couple of lead teachers at certain grade levels, around humanities, around science and math, that kind of thing.
I think for that kind of stuff though, the numbers would reflect a decision made about that, rather than do that with the numbers. So in other words, if that's of interest, then I think as a matter of the process, that probably goes to the program committee as a function of advice for Tony.
And I have benchmark salaries, so what you can do is as we start looking down through that, part of it is balancing out where you might bring in a young teacher, and that would change some of the numbers that are there and allow you to add on to a salary that was going to be for a master teacher who was older. We did some of that this past year, but yeah, it's absolutely worth looking at.
Yeah,
Knowing that-
I'd like to make sure we're thinking about that and we're building the budget, so we have some slots available to do that.
Yeah.
Rather than having to revisit the budgets at some point when a dynamite candidate appears.
Well, we will.
So,
That's the issue, David, is that we will. We'll have to, because we'll end up where we won't be able to find anyone for less than 45. So the ones that are on there for less than 45 will have to adjust. Something else will have to give. This budget shows an operating profit, in quotes, of about 100 grand. And on a budget of 2.2 million, that's break even.
That's right.
Because there'll be surprises that you can count on. There'll be surprises that you can list them off the top of your head that'll more than eat up 100 grand. And there may be grants that we'll get, so there'll be surprises on the positive side. But as a way to kind of frame the way to consider what will look like next year, that's not a bad way to start.
When I looked at this cash flow cumulative thing, I totally get the profit and the thing, and you're right. It's just like a wave going up. It's just a point in time on the wave.
That's right.
When the next cash
If you could
starts
smooth it out,
going in.
that'd be great.
Yeah, okay. So it's not a profit, it just happens to be a point in time.
That's right. It's not unlike a seasonal business that sells insect repellent or something. Ask me anything. If you get to September, October, and then you have to hold your breath till April.
Well, we were worried about that this March. I mean, remember, we had
Yeah,
to work
well,
it out.
and this is why the focus on enrollment that's the whole, now the next piece of this is we've got an application level. Now the push is, all right, so how do we design the program and build it out? How do we add leadership even against next year so that people understand that, okay, we have 200 plus kids, now come on and meet the new teachers. It's early August. We're not going to be doing this in mid-September. We're not going to do last year again. Unless you want to.
Certainly not. So,
What's with that?
is there some more detail here about programmatic type purchases and whatnot? Like
Yeah, there's material that we put,
Do you have the-
You know, there's a whole potential set.
Yeah,
of
we
questions.
actually, we looked at some leases for electronics that was, it's at $5,000 a month. That's things like smart boards and computers. We looked at there's a,
This will be in the PDF. I
There we
guess
go.
this is a big fight. I didn't want to hit you with this in paper.
some material, yeah.
We budgeted 450 students for a combination of instructional, material, athletics, and arts. And in addition, there's 120,000 for smart boards, computers, I'll say learning classroom furnishings. Those numbers, there's the, right here, it's 10 a month, smart boards, equipment, classroom furnishings, the instructional materials hit, where's it? It's a big number, should come out as. Right there, there's 90,000, which is the 450 times.
Per student.
Per student.
I did some calculations on my own today, but made some estimates and whatnot, on some of these things, but I'm just not clear if we want to get into that right now, or if we want to focus on between now and June.
I think it's better, oh no, it's both. It's, I mean, between now and June is simple. We have no extra money, period. We have no cash, except for payroll and the things we're obligated to spend each month, so it's.
Okay, should I pass out what I put together? Is that what you want to take a look at that?
That
We did
or,
have some discussion at program committee last week about some of the priorities and what we see as being important. And I just don't know if those are included here. Or
I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it,
some of
Dave.
them are.
Because there are, you can see all of those categories. And those are separate from any personnel cost or consulting cost or administrative cost. So rather than try to reconcile what you have with what's up here, the best way to do it will be to talk to Tony directly, I think. Unless we want to go through every one of these, because we'll have to.
Not necessarily, Joe, but I think maybe it'd be good if the program committee could take a look at this. And
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was the suggestion, was to attach real numbers to, from the suggested list, and then see how they plug in and whether it fits. Would be
Well,
the
and
next
there's
piece.
some ratios too. I mean, a SPED teacher for each grade or each of 40 kids. I heard that from a couple of people. You heard it from a couple of people.
Yeah.
Materials expense, $450 a student. I've heard that's high. I've heard it's low. I've heard other people argue with what's included in that.
that's pretty close to what I was thinking.
It may be, but then that's before we get to arts supplies and athletic supplies. Some people include that in the 450. We didn't. So, and then the other piece of this is to know that, at least in my experience, which is operating an enterprise that's about this size, is that you track it month to month, and then discover that, when you total up the fact that maintenance of building at 400 doesn't come in that way, or utilities is higher, or something's off or different, then you get to adjust on the fly. Also because $100,000 over time is about $10,000 a month. There are other things to do.
I think one of our concerns, Joe, Anton, and Rick, and Gordon, in the program committee was that curriculum materials are essential, and teachers get empowered by administrative support, collegial support, and also a statement from people who put the budget together to get the curriculum materials in place so when they get to school in mid-August or late August, that there are materials available for them to go and run with them. So some of these purchasing pieces about curriculum have to be made before summer staff leave for the summer, so that when they return, those people who are working in the office can know where to distribute materials so the teachers can pick them up and be on their way once the children are on the first day of school. So that's just an aspect of it.
No, that's right. Well, and this, to be clear, that money is paid in August. The expenses incurred a month or two before that.
Mhm.
All of this while hiring a number of teachers, all to start in August. That's where which is where the key is to know that what you want is a scaffolding for how we would proceed, the timing of certain things, knowing that someone will agree to 31 instead of 33, knowing that they'll sign up, but they can't start until the week before Labor Day, and so on and so on and so on. But the actuals will look different from the forecast. But as long as this is plausible, it will be close enough. Now, for individual program questions or a general approach like Dave, what you just outlined, I have to talk to them. That's not a finance committee decision. The finance committee will say, well, if you want to do that, and you're going to raise salaries, then you're going to lower headcount, or you're going to have to find those people that expense from somewhere else.
Yeah, well, it seems like it needs to be a conversation rather than, two separate committees operating.
Well, no, I think anyone could take this and adjust it.
You know, for
The
example,
chair of the finance committee, speaking for himself, says, you do whatever you want to do with that.
But if we have an item like bus rental to see if we can rent instead of buying a bus to take the kids out to visit all these places, is that the kind of thing we go to Tony and say, can we budget that? Or to talk to committees in a macro way and say, do we want to have
Well, I
that?
think the start was the right one, which says there's a number of things that people want. The answer is never going to be yes or no. It's going to be
Prioritize.
compared to what?
Yeah.
So the answer to that is absolutely we can do that, but we can't do something else for the same amount of money and distraction time. So, but that's where I'd say if that's a reasonable scaffolding, change whatever you'd like to change.
Plus then that 97 might adjust up and down too. It might be 67 if it found that was a
67,
priority.
the finance committee chairman would get very nervous.
Fine, okay. Well, that's the question. Where's the line? Is there any?
Oh, I'd say keep it, that we know what the top line's going to be
Right.
reasonably. Now, we may be surprised on the upside, we might be surprised on the downside. See, how am I doing? I mean, I think this is the right approach. I am agnostic. I'm the layperson in the room. Actually, maybe Rick, no, Rick has more educational experience than I do.
Catholic, sorry.
I mean, I was interested in some of these numbers, but per pupil instructional supplies at $450, is that high or low?
These guys would know.
Well, it depends what that includes. If that's, every textbook they're going to have.
It is.
In addition to art supplies.
Everything but
Right.
art supplies and athletic supplies.
Right.
And nurse supplies, or medical supplies.
Yeah.
Well, as we established one of our full board of trustees meeting when I first joined the group here, program committee, finance committee, communication outreach, they can all make recommendations, but ultimately we have to check with Tony to have a dialogue about, this is what we want. Wait a second, there are this many dollars you can have towards that. You can't have all the money because that leaves 5 other things. So there has to be an
that's right.
interdependency.
Right.
Not this committee talking, and then, so the more you can, I know your time is, but the more you can be involved in each of the committee's discussion, particularly when a recommendation means $36,385.13 towards such and such. The more fluid this system is going to be.
Well, there's also, remember, we can set a budget and we can approve it at the board level. And as we operate, we will see variance, which is really the only thing the finance committee wants to be tracking for the first 6 months of next year. That's it. From the variance, up or down, we can then decide things from there, or we can go right back to the executive director and say, let's look, we're up $42,000 for now. Let's track that for another month, and then if it holds, let's see what's causing it and see what else we might want to invest in or spend our money on.
Yeah, and an extension of that, as Joe said, we focused on the revenue, the head count, and the rent. There's 20% else that, to be honest, their money's just spread out. Beyond the $450 per head, the rest of the line items I think, need some focus and determination as to what you're going to spend on. Let me show you what I did. And this is one of the ways in those other areas, because it's still 20% of the expenses. But going down here, as we determine, again, first pass, legal's not what we're talking about, but getting into, these supplies, 48,000, when we spent 32,000 last year. The materials I pointed out, there's a lot of line items. They're not big dollars individually, but deciding what's in there is, because to your point earlier too, is, what's in it, what's in, what's out. What I tried to do is try these numbers as I just literally put them in. And by the way, we forecast for the rest of this year. Joe and Tony are right. There is no room left right now to spend money right now. I mean, it's one thing to accrue it, one thing to have the expense, one thing to make the decisions to go and order something. That's fine. And that's what's done. But in terms of actually writing checks, we are on fumes to get to that payment on June 30th. Okay, great. Then this year's done. Everything's looking like it's a pretty good year compared to the budget. Cash is lagging. Then getting into next year, actually identifying what's going in each of these line items. Absolutely, that's the next step. And that's why it says draft and preliminary 3 ways to Sunday, because even I think we're probably pretty close the rest of the year, but this guy's been running around doing 9 jobs, so and this is one of the jobs that's on the list coming up. It just moves around.
Well, I think, professional development, for example, is a good example of where there needs to be some conversation about, what we're looking to do programmatically and what makes sense financially.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's some PD numbers listed there at the top line. So for the year, next year, we're looking at just over $80,000 for PD.
And
Is that right?
that was one of these. That's a perfect example of where when I was doing this file, we spent a lot of time talking about those big numbers, and then I was backfilling. The 8,500 is just, I'm not even sure what's in the 8,900. That's the other thing. Well, what was spent? Should that be, I think to Joe's point, if you come back and should be 12,000, okay, then it's just a matter of hopefully somewhere else, it's 4,000 high, that you can take it from.
Well, from my perspective, that's a low number for next year. And, I listed some areas that I think there needs to be some focus on PD for the staff. So I just,
Right, but there may be,
how we make that happen.
one thing to do, then look for the numbers that are high.
I just saw one, it might be, I know it's a low number in total, but look at that. That's up by $3,000. It's information technology.
I think that's the IT.
Yeah, but we have other numbers down below, that could be, it could pick up some there.
6,000% increase in medical supplies.
Yeah,
500 to 6,700.
Yeah, that's high.
So
that didn't total. That looks like a
I'm
month's
saying
number.
normally that there is some.
Oh, yes, that's it, yeah.
There is some leeway currently in this budget.
No,
on.
not quite. What I'm saying is that we need to be specific as to what's being spent in these categories, and we haven't been. So in going through that process, as we create the specificity, the number that's 12,000 for one category, we only have 6 when we actually get into it. Because I would think, and again, I'm doing all this just numbers pulling together, not knowing what's underneath them, with the exception of revenue, headcount, what could be underneath the 9,000 in technology last year, maybe it's 6,000 one time. So guess what, that's not coming into next year, we've already bought it, which means the 12, maybe it should be 6.
Right.
Maybe get into that category, and it shouldn't be 12, it should be 19. That's all I'm saying. So it's a back and forth, I think that's what Joe's saying. From a finance committee standpoint, the bottom line, at 97, we probably don't want to be much lower than that.
Yeah.
But where's it gonna go, you know, and how, you know,
So I think my main question here is, how are we going to get to that point by April 1st?
To which point?
You know, to having that discussion about certain line items like the PD, for example.
Go right to Tony. Because right now, the finance committee has, as I said, as a scaffolding for it. For into the detail, I can imagine that with enough time, there's a way to squeeze out what the variance is and what those numbers mean, what the pockets mean.
And all the assumptions are in here, right? Or isn't this what makes it?
The PDF that I'll send tomorrow is a
Okay.
PDF of what you're looking at up here.
But I saw the teacher salaries and all
Yeah.
the small breakout.
Yep, the summary pages except for detail and DVA.
I think just me having a phone call with Tony isn't exactly what I had in mind, Joe.
What is it like then?
I think it means having a conversation with the
Okay.
members, or at least a few members of the program committee.
Oh, I would think that the program committee should take this and take what you'd like to do and see how these two overlap.
Yeah, we definitely need some time to look at this.
Oh, this is the,
Yeah.
But is the 450 a kid all program committee money, so to speak?
no, it's not. There's no such thing as committee longer.
No, but you know what I'm saying. In other words, can they multiply 450 times 200 and say, here's our budget, and now we prioritize our A, B, and C, and we see how to spend that 840,000 bucks?
No.
Okay.
The idea is, take a look at this budget. I've got two wish lists. I think of them as wish lists. I have A, B, and C from Art, and I think I've seen yours.
I've got the same thing here, yeah.
And you should first off, put those together. That would be a good start. I'd imagine there's some overlap, but not complete. Your A lists will get longer, your Bs and your Cs. It also doesn't mean that that's it, that now the door shuts and that's all we can do next year, at all. I don't see a Spanish teacher in here, by the way. That would be my main interest, for instance. Should I go to the program committee and make a case for the Spanish teacher?
You should go to the commissioner for that first.
Well, no, I'm going to this budget. I think it fits. And so now the question is, as a matter of process, Art, can I visit your committee and make my case? And the answer is, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say to the program committee, here is what we've got. Here's the top line. Underneath the top line, I have a sense now, having seen Art's A list, and having a sense for how the school has to operate. How many teachers, how many sped, materials, some of the basics. I know what the rent is. Right now, we've got 80% covered. We're done. We have 80%. If someone wants to move those items around, absolutely, they're completely fungible. We could actually, in an extreme case, have one teacher doing a classroom of 40. I wouldn't suggest that. But we could. Or you may turn around and say, you know, we really need our interns at minimum wage on top of, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is the top line and everything that happens underneath it. We have a pretty good sense for what some salaries are. And we have a pretty good sense for the kinds of people we're looking for, especially in the administrative piece. Some of them we've already found. So, but to issues like, should 450 be 550? I'm way out of my depth on that. Way out of my depth.
But the 450 and 550 issue relates to that 97 on the bottom line, doesn't it?
It all does.
Right, because they don't give me 600, you know, but, so they can have A and B, but.
But that's why I'm saying, if you start with what may look excessive in there, the other thing is that we put in money for smart boards and computers, but that's on the finance committee chairman's belief that he can go get them leased.
You can go get what?
Get them leased.
Let them leased, okay.
We wouldn't be buying them for $5,000 a month. That's not going to get a whole lot. But could we lease them? Maybe. Maybe. I But do you see what in other words, it is an iterative process, but I'd take this, take a look at it. Tony knows the details, Rick knows, I know some of them or most of them, and see where you'd adjust it. We may, I looked at the same professional development number too. If it was $8,000 for the number of teachers we have now, how could it be $8,000 if we're going up by 2.5 times?
Right.
Depending on what professional development
There's
means.
some other-
Now, for my folks at my shop, to send 4 people to a conference instead of 1, marginal difference. It's about the same budget.
Yeah, I think it's just the types of degree that we'll be offering next year as opposed to what we did this year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So the numbers may not, the number of staff attending probably wouldn't affect it as
Right.
much as, what do we want to achieve out of the training over the course of the year.
Right.
So I think we need to take a look at this budget and look at some of the priorities we identified.
And I think the key thing is to try and get as specific as possible around it for like certain professional development, for example, the program that we were looking at in terms of how faculty were going to go about planning their curriculum. Some of that's free in terms of the programs you can work with. There are others that we know we'd like to have and perhaps set up a relationship for the year with. And to make that one call, get some sense of what the cost could be, and then plug that in. That would actually be the preferable way to go. In the same way that right now, I think we've actually got additional funding in the supplies line because we went with the Turk program in mathematics. We actually funded more of it in the first year, even though we're still paying for it, because we had students who were a grade ahead and some students were a grade behind. So we actually ordered the materials all the way from 3rd grade right through the top of the program. And so a lot of those materials, other than some consumables, they're all bought. We have them already. So that there is some play deliberately put in here to do exactly what you're talking about, which is now to take it look at those key elements from professional development to staffing, and staying within what we know works in terms of numbers, get as specific as possible.
And also to take a look at it, because you know this field a million times better than I do. What's missing that should be on the A list that we're not thinking about? From my own experience, I know that we use recruiters from time to time to find people to hire, and it never makes it into the budget.
What makes it out of the bank?
We have to figure out, or we stretch it, or we somehow figure it out. But I don't know when we're going to use a recruiter, when we're not, so I kind of cheat it, knowing that I'm cheating.
For example, 1A in the Boston Globe is $300 for one assignment. So if you do that 10 times, that's 10 grand.
Right.
Particularly if we start
No, that's right.
in the middle or the end of April, starting advertising for next year. That's
right. And then Craigslist
is $3,000.
is $25.
No offense.
But you're right, and those are actually,
Just a
that's less, that's, the more interesting number is something like professional development, which if you go on a ratio basis, that could get steep. That could be 20.
You base most of this, though, on the previous year, so even
Some of it.
recruiters might sneak into the budget because you say, well, let's just roll over last year's actual.
That's right, or raise it up a little bit, yeah, that's right.
Tony, I think the example you just brought up is a good example of we just need to have this conversation because you know that what was purchased already, what we already have, and whether those things are already in place that we wouldn't have to go into this budget.
Right.
So,
Well, and there may be grants that we're not thinking of or that haven't made it in there yet.
We haven't put any grants in there, and that's a key piece to remember.
As long as the key is to get confirmation that these are not likely, these are not, we should be able to get them, these are going to happen, bank on it. $200,000 in there and then not have. That's a little more disruptive than suddenly getting $200,000 that you didn't really think you were going to get.
I know one of the things that tipped the balance financially this year was furniture. Is that built in here?
There's furniture in 50.
That's what I think so.
I think there's furniture in 50. And I'm going to see if we can get that lease too, because I think there might have been something might have, maybe.
I know that was one of your headaches this year.
It was the biggest, it was definitely the biggest, was that we couldn't lease it. So that hit us hard. But yeah, there's some in there. I think we also want to be, I'm on Craigslist every single night looking just to see what's out there. And contacted the various big high schools where I know people in case they're remodeling. So many towns that build new programs, sometimes their lab equipment is available and that kind of thing. So we're just, we've got to be smart about it as well, as much as we can.
So you're on Craigslist every night? I thought they took the escorts off of Craigslist.
Thanks, Gordon.
Yeah.
Good. So,
So are you going to send a PDF out of all this information that Rick just put together tomorrow?
yeah. And, see what you think. See what's missing. What are we not putting in here? I think it's all there. I think all the categories are there. There may be a couple of categories that are in a couple of different ways.
Did you ever compute it for the 450 for fiscal year 11, what we spent, or so far in fiscal year 11? With the what makes up that 450? Is it apples to apples to the assumptions used?
Oh, the 450
Per student, yeah.
it's about the same.
Yeah.
It's about,
Per kid,
I
right.
think assuming 85, it came in around 32,000, I think, and change. It's not too far off. Now, I don't know what's in that.
That's right, because this wasn't necessarily done by you guys, this year's curriculum, right? This wasn't some of it because we had to adjust so much,
Right.
or did it come through a committee? It didn't, did it?
Which
The materials.
You went out and some of us have put the budget together.
You, okay, so you started, but, yeah.
And I think the realities of buying furniture and other things made for some dramatic changes in that budget.
Because the idea was we have a 3 to 5 year lease program.
But that's not in the 450 per head.
And I think,
No.
Yeah.
no, and I think we were required at the time to talk to furniture manufacturers who leased. I think that's right. As opposed to furniture manufacturers who manufacture furniture and then talk to a leasing company they're separate.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I see the point he's making there, Gordo, that we tried to contact the companies
This is a
themselves.
cruise list.
Just instead of seeing if you could get the purchase organized and then talk to leasing companies and see if that's. And we actually didn't have, by the time we got there and realized that the assumption was incorrect, so it was too late. We had to get the classrooms furnished, so we could open on time, so we got caught.
So does this budget have counseling staff built in? And the other question is about a librarian.
Yeah, it's two good questions. No librarians put in there. The part of that obviously is we have no librarians, so the question would be, should some amount be set aside on a consultancy basis to have you figure out how best to build your program and or how you use your computers in terms of that element of it.
Did you mean we have no library?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have.
Yeah, that's not what he said, but yeah, good.
Yeah, no librarian, so if there's no library,
Why, you have yeah.
And it's a good question to sort of wrestle over is, because the needs are kind of different. I mean, you all remember, I'm sure, that all the news articles about Cushing Academy, who sold off their entire collection or gave it away in books, and they're now a completely digitized library. And but it's a high school level program. And that's really different from young kids who I think need the sort of tactful connection to reading.
In Cushing, it was all part of their new image, selling what they were strongest at, and they did their 21st century.
Yeah, the whole 21st
thing.
century,
So
yeah,
that
that's
was
right.
right in line with getting that old.
Although the alumni weren't too happy to see the library going.
And what about the counseling?
And counseling, at the moment, part of that's folded into the nurse, so that having a trained nurse who can do counseling to have, or where we tried to do it in there was to have people wear multiple hats. You'll notice when you look at the budget as well, the office manager line has changed in terms of an amount there. And that was based on a move when I was at Pingree to hire someone in that position who had significant skills. In the end, we actually hired a former attorney who had unbelievable organizational skills, wrote extremely well, and managed everything from HR issues to calendar to all sorts of different pieces, whether it be paid more to have that level of support.
So he could actually yell at the kids, and then counsel the kids, and then discipline himself for all of that. I like that kind of. Yeah.
So,
That is the kind
I'm
of
just trying to understand this
you want.
business.
yeah.
Even the dean of students is that person we were thinking about as a, if it's not counseling, the next step, there's some.
You had him in there, I saw. That person was in there, that
Okay.
dean of, I like that the dean of students. That is a Gus model, because that guy, Bruce Emerson, who did that for about 20 years, he was their athletic director, and he functioned as the dean of students for Raymond, because he was head of school. And it actually was a great thing, because the kids just flocked right to the guy, and he was able to go, okay. I mean, that's the kind of position you're talking about, isn't it? With that-
Yeah, so that's that sort of
Yeah.
interesting skill set that they're able to mentor,
Kind of
support.
Alan McCoy and the Buddy Cat,
That's right.
right? His Buddy
He
Cat.
used Pingree names.
Yeah, to Adam. But Bruce Emerson, I think, is part of it.
Assume for the moment the wonderful fact that we are going to have 200 students in September. Will this building, as it's currently constructed, hold that many students?
It will, it'll use almost every space in it. I mean, that's, in terms of the number of classrooms, absolutely, we're fine.
Okay.
We were just talking about what happens next and how.
Yeah,
But there's sort of good
Because the
problems.
landlord always has
like,
some
yeah,
things.
for us, as far as looking back a year from ago.
and the plan always was that in year 3, before year 3 started, you'd be expanding.
Yes.
Don't forget that fair bidding law stuff. Keeping an eye on you, Tony Blackman.
Thanks.
So other questions?
The other thing that came up at program the other night was a really good point Howard's brought up about the fact of obviously enrolling younger kids and to be planning ahead in some way to be building some space for them outdoors, some play area, playground type thing. My guess is that's not in this budget right now, right?
Yeah, that would be true. And it's one of the things we need to take a look at in terms of both planning permission, outdoor space, what we can do, what we can't.
Some volunteers.
We have to have a certain amount of parking based on.
It might be a fundraising project or
Yeah.
something.
That's right.
Or even here and build it.
There may be some obligations in the lease.
There is, or there are some obligations in this. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the key pieces for next year.
Hey, Tony, this has nothing to do with finance, but since you put that sign up there recently, the people coming up this way are going so fast to come around here. When I was in there today coaching, I looked out and this car went by at like 40. Now, I don't think he was cutting off to the thing, but you might want to think about
Speed
investing
bumps.
in a sign. I don't know about speed bump, but just slow kids, because,
Gordon, that may be for a different committee.
it is, that's what I said, I just want to warn you, like 24 hours. It's not it's not another committee if some kid gets hit tomorrow. Because I'm telling you, it's a whole new situation than it was yesterday.
So other questions? Because we're an hour. I will send the PDF to everyone who's here. And I think that's it.
Well, I'd like to thank Rick for all of this.
My pleasure.
Joey,
Number
take
of
this from
hours
the
is
peanut
obvious.
gallery.
Yeah, hey Rick, are you okay with questions from?
I actually don't have too many questions on the numbers themselves because I haven't looked at them. And it doesn't, it's like,
Motion to adjourn before we do that?
no, it's part of the meeting.
Or part of the
I mean, it's up to you guys, but normally it would be part of the meeting. Two questions. One, I want to clarify the numbers that you're submitting to DOE tomorrow because we
No, it's 18.
well, the 18th, but you had the lottery today, so you're expecting, today we looked at it was 182. Is that what you're going to be submitting to?
No, we're submitting 200 to the only requirement from the DOE is that you submit the names and addresses of the students who are being selected in the lottery or in terms of being picked. And we're doing that. It means that we have some larger sections, as I was saying to you before, of 6, 7. So one of those grades, in an ideally world, you might have, where there's 80,
You know
might
what,
have 40
actually,
and 40.
I gotta cut you off, because we're off the agenda.
Sorry.
We are, can we adjourn the meeting?
Well, it's not because it
If I
has to
leave,
do
you
with the
can't
numbers
adjourn
and
the
how
meeting.
you,
I
that
think
budget.
it's about,
Because he
if
told
it's
me
about
to be
what
allowed.
we've just been talking about, yeah, that's fine. Because what I don't want to do is
Okay.
go off of open.
No, I understand. No, it's, but what you're budgeting on is based on 200 students, and I'm trying to clarify the assumption that there will be 200 reported for funding purposes.
Well, in these numbers, that's the assumption we're making.
Okay.
Anything lower than that is a separate conversation. But if you have another question about these numbers, then
No, that's it. And I think the other question I had to do with David's question was, how do you reconcile this budget with what you have to supply to the Department of Education on April 1st with the need to clarify the concerns he has about what you have in your budget? Are you meeting again as a finance committee to vote on this budget before you meet as a committee as a whole to approve the budget before you go to ESE?
that's a great question. Probably.
Okay, that was.
We don't know. but
We've been meeting
probably.
once a week anyway, haven't we? So that's not that hard to do.
No, but we've been meeting every few weeks, but that's a good point, because I think ultimately the budget has to go through the board, so that it would need a recommendation from this committee.
That was the question.
Yeah,
So
that's
if you're
probably,
gonna-
I'm pretty sure we have to do that.
That's something we need to settle on our agenda anyway.
We can do it afterwards.
Meeting day, right?
Yeah, although we won't know when the board will be meeting. So I can't meet before the 28th. In fact, I can't meet on the 28th.
Yeah, I think that.
That makes it easy.
Since I'm out of
So
town.
why don't we'll figure out when we'll have a quorum for that meeting and still leave time for, or we'll get an extension and I'll have a conversation with the commission to find out. So a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, don't get, we're discussing
Second.
for a minute.
So David, you can need a second.
You done?
Meeting